This here is a pretty unique, but still weird in its own way, fully meshed out mid-tower from a company called Dark Flash. This is their DLC 29 full mesh luxury PC chassis, and the only reason I bought it is because it looked very convincing on their Amazon product page. So the gist of this is that every single panel is mesh, with the exception of the bottom panel, which you don't really need much ventilation for anyway. There will be, I'm assuming, ventilation for the power supply if we turn things fan side down at the rear, but elsewhere, left side panel, front panel, even the right panel, and the top panel, they're all mesh, and I'm hoping that means good temperatures. I'm actually so convinced by the way this looks on paper that I'm willing to throw my personal editing rig, all of that gear, including a 2080 Ti and a 12900K, both air-cooled, into this full mesh case. At the end of the day, I may end up regretting this, but I'm willing to give it a shot. Again, I'm convinced enough on paper that it's worth trying, at least for a few weeks. I'm going to be talking about everything from the build experience to airflow, run a few tests before and after, including with my current case, a P300A from Fantex with a meshed out front panel. Who knows? This could end up being a pretty impressive case, but the ultimate factor I think is going to be price, and that's what we're going to talk about at the end so that you'll be able to decide for yourself if this is worth your consideration. Are you ready? Stay with me. If you're looking for a way to rid yourself of that pesky Windows activation watermark, head on over to VIP SCD Key. Their mid-year sale has Windows 10 Pro OEM keys at a special discount of 30%, meaning you'll pay only around $15 to fully activate your OS with our offer code GSVIP. Activating Windows is super easy, and we'll detail how to handle it later in the video. But if you're ready to get started, be sure to click the link in this video's description. And at this screen, in the promo code box, enter GSVIP. Did you get that? GSVIP, then click order. I always like to pay via PayPal, by the way. Quick and secure, you'll see that huge 30% discount being applied. And by the way, even with an OEM key, you'll be able to upgrade to Windows 11, assuming your hardware is supported and you want to upgrade to Windows 11. Also be sure to jump on board soon. This 30% discount will only be running for a limited time, about 20 days or so. You can visit VIP SCD Key and activate your Windows machine for a heck of a lot less than retail. Again, click the top link in this video's description. Gotta love the rough Mandarin to English translation, fly to unlimited. So let's get this thing out of the box. I want to see if Jeremy can nail this transition in editing. 3, 2, 1. All right, and you can see the left side panel here is, no, it's totally meshed. There's no glass anywhere, which you'll either love or hate. We can start off with front I/O. It is top mounted. We have a power button here, reset switch, 2 LEDs, one for power state and one for hard disk usage. We have a headphone jack, a microphone jack, as well as 2 USB 2.0 type A ports and 2 3.0 ports. A quick walk around here and you'll see that every major panel is in fact fully meshed, including the left and front panels, as well as the right panel, which might be a bit redundant, but it might help a bit with the airflow paths in this one. The top panel is also perforated, but this involves a magnetic dust filter. The other major panels here are actually fully stamped through, so it's not like you can remove or detach any of this mesh. It's actually, yeah, punched through the panel itself, which I think is pretty cool, gives it a more premium feel. Now inside you'll find plenty of space. You can actually fit larger than standard ATX motherboards in here. If you wanted to go eATX, you've got plenty of extra length. You can pretty much stretch these all the way to the front. Just mind that you might not be able to fit front fans if you have that big of a motherboard in here. You can mount a 360mm fan rad combo up front. There is a cutout in the basement to have this run all the way down. Up top it looks like either a 240 or 280 combo. I'll put something on screen to let you know. And at the rear, you'll find just a 120mm mount that you can slide up and down just a tad. 7 PCI slots at the rear, so by definition this is a mid-tower. We also have 2 vertical mounts. Now normally I would say these are pretty pointless unless you're custom water cooling because these are positioned so closely to the left side panel. However, if you have an air-cooled graphics card, I wouldn't be worried too much in this case because the left side panel, remember, is fully meshed, so your card's actually going to be able to breathe quite easily, I think. You also get plenty of cutouts in this case around the motherboard tray, so that's convenient, and a dedicated PCI supplemental power cutout as well. However, there are no rubber grommets in this case, so it's going to feel a bit cheaper than maybe some competitors in the price range. And around back, not a ton of cable management space, quite a bit more at the upper maybe 2 inches or so, but we're looking at only about maybe 1.5 centimeters of cable clearance behind the motherboard tray. It's about 1/2 inch or so. It's nothing to really gawk at. We've also got a single hard disk drive mounting point here. You might be able to mount a second one up top, but this is pretty stripped down in some respects, and then you're trading a lot of that for the mesh, pretty much, because you know that tooling is not cheap. By the way, this is your average goodie bag. If you zip tie, it's nice you get some, and you get screws as well for all your hardware, but you also get a pretty sweet accessory box. Now this has an anti-sag graphics card mount and whatever that is. Looks like some cable combs. Oh, but we were shorted the cable combs, or whatever those were, little things that look like route cables. We only have this, and this looks like, yeah, just something you can wedge your graphics card in to keep it standing upright. Not that you'll be able to see it very well in your case anyway, but yeah, it's nice you get it. Now off camera, I have essentially gutted my editing rig. It's all sitting on the side now, waiting to be put into the new Dark Flash full mesh case, but this is a P300A that everything was originally in. I've got to take these fans out to do some testing. And this got me thinking, maybe you're building a PC for the first time, or you're gutting a system and you want to start fresh, you want to reinstall Windows. You'll probably have to activate Windows at the same time, but it doesn't make any sense to spend $100+ US to buy a full-fledged retail key when an OEM key will do just fine at a small fraction of the cost. So let's start things where we left off. Let's say you've purchased an OEM Windows key from the site. Now what do? Navigate to the User Center, and from here you can click View Keys/Codes, and once you have your key, you can swing down to the Windows Start tab, type Activation, and click Enter. Select Change or Add Product Key, and paste your activation code. If you're entering it manually, triple check that you've typed it correctly, then click Activate. And from here, Windows will work its magic, and you should notice your watermark disappear. You'll then have a fully activated copy of Windows 10 that you can even upgrade to Windows 11 if you'd like. Just keep in mind that OEM keys like these lock to the hardware in question, so any major platform changes may require a new code for activation. Then again, I don't know too many folks swapping motherboards on a daily or weekly basis. And just a reminder, this sale from VIP SCDKey is going on for a limited time only, so be sure to snag your key before it's too late. Just click the links below in the video description, and remember to use our offer code GSVIP for a mega 30% discount. And now, back to the video. This is my current platform, 12900K, yes, air-cooled with an ID cooling tower, 64 gigs of DDR5, 5200 megahertz, I believe, and an Asus Hero motherboard. It's a very beefy setup. You're probably wondering how the heck I'm managing to pull off cooling a 12900K with this kind of TDP air tower cooler. I can't. I actually have to undervolt at this point. I was able to get away with it at stock before, but now I'm throttling a tad, so what I've done is back down voltage to about 1.2 V-core, and then the multiplier for the performance cores is set to 45, so about 4.5 gigahertz for a chip like this. I'm more concerned about the higher core count of the CPU than I am the higher frequency of each individual core. Just given what I do with video editing, this is a very solid platform despite having to pull things back just a tad. After moving around and adding a few standoffs, because they were in an MATX setup before, which is a little weird, we're gonna go ahead and add the motherboard. There we go. All right, looking pretty good. Oh my gosh, CPU cooler clearance is not, it's not fantastic, I'll say that. This ID cooler is, got about 1/2 inch to spare. You know, I've got to say, I'm really digging the blacked out theme here. So obviously the case is black, but the platform is as well. There's really no color. There is some RGB baked into the motherboard. It's very subtle though. Most of it comes through this mirror-like rear IO shield finish. And then the RAM and the cooler, there's no RGB. It's just straight black for the most part. So I'm digging it. I don't have a hard disk drive, so I'm gonna remove the hard disk drive cage. And we're gonna slide our power supply in, unhindered now, from the right side. Or maybe I spoke too soon. No, it's a tight fit, but it'll do. Oh yeah. We'll add our 2.5 inch drive, sits right there. And at this point, all we've left to do is wire things up. We've got the graphics card still installed, of course, and the capture card, and then the fan. So normally I tackle fans at this point, but I'm gonna go ahead and install the same fans that were in my original editing rig in the same locations as this case and run a few temperature tests before and after, and then we'll address this toward the end of the video. So I want you to know that this is the point where I'm gonna run these, because swapping fans after putting the new ones that I wanna put in here and then doing it all over again to undo that for the sake of the testing is just, that's a bit too much work here. So let me take care of that and I'll be right back. We'll take care of some Noctua Chromax fans here, 120s, 3 up front. I don't think I'm gonna go with the exhaust fan. I think I'm gonna leave it empty. You can see more of the rear I/O kind of LED display that Asus has built into their board. And 3 up front should be perfectly fine. Again, I expect this case to have good airflow regardless. And the rear here looks decent. I would like to see a few more zip tie points. There are a couple like between the cutouts for cable routing, and I mean, at least we have some, but I don't like that now you're gonna see these cables poking through these cutouts from the left side, assuming, you know, you can actually see into the case. So I don't think the placement's ideal. I'd like to see some zip tie mounts over on this side here where you're just completely covered by the motherboard tray. That would be the best case scenario for me. And then maybe like a couple more down here. We have one, but it's in a place that doesn't really help me because there's nothing above it, so we can't stick to just vertical lines. There's a pretty big rat's nest underneath here. I'm just tucking excess cabling there so that we can't see it from either the front, from the left side or the right side, and a bit of excess PCIe supplemental power that we'll have to do something about. But otherwise, yeah, it's good enough. And now we can try securing the right side panel. I'm gonna try this standing up. It's a lot easier laying this flat. But this, yeah, so it's already in place at the front, and then just a couple thumb screws at the rear. These are not captive, by the way, and they're a bit cheap looking, just the plastic little shells that you'll grip with your fingers, but it works, and look at that, rather effortless. We can get this front panel taken care of, just snaps into place, the top, and the bottom. Lastly, our 2 expansion cards, our graphics card obviously, and our capture card, but check this out. This case, yeah, it's got the cheap foldable PCIe slot covers that you really can't reinstall if you decide you don't want to use that one anymore. So you kind of got to wiggle them off. It's cheap. I should have done this actually before installing the motherboard because it's a bit difficult to do it now. But yeah, this is probably the first big disappointment. It's just, yeah, this reeks of cheapness. Let's get this off, okay. And then our capture card is gonna be this slot. So let's wiggle it until it comes loose. In goes our dual 8-pin 2080 Ti. Let's see, there we go. And where's our capture card? This thing down here. Gonna just slot in. All right, and a few more screws. Screw it. I went ahead and installed the anti-sag little bracket here, and I think it looks decent. It blends in with the rest of the case. Supplemental PCIe power, 2 8-pins. Lock these in. We'll fix our cable combs a tad. Well, here we are. I like it, actually. I really do. It's not the most artsy case in one sense of the word. And, you know, you can't see into your build and kind of admire all the work that you did to it because the left side panel is mesh and not glass or acrylic. But I think all around the trade-offs are worth it because the case it's compact. I really like that. If you notice, it's not very deep front to back, right? So you might have to worry about graphics card length. That might be an issue, especially if you have a front-mounted radiator fan combo. You can mount your fans between, it looks like, the front panel and the actual fan mount bracket, and then you can put your radiator where our fans are currently. But you can see, I mean, that's not like a ton of space, and this 2080 Ti is not a very long one. There are much longer graphics cards on the market, so do mind that. And then of course the issue with not having a ton of zip tie points and optimal places behind the motherboard tray. Those are really my only 2 gripes. I mean, yeah, I can complain about the PCI slot things as well. Just, I don't know, it's a cheap inclusion. I'm not sure why they did that. That's really the only thing that tells me that this is, you know, I don't know, not that the whole case feels cheap, but that part feels cheap. And it rubs off elsewhere. So I would fix that, but otherwise, impressive. It really is. Now, the airflow tests that I ran with the original fans in here that were in my P300A, so I had 2 fans up front and I mounted them in about the same position, and then I had 1 exhaust fan here. Same fan curve, nothing changed. Temperatures were pretty much identical. There was a 1 degree difference for our GPU diode temps, but the CPU package temps, IA temps were pretty much the same. I think they were exactly the same. So this case is not any more airflowy than a cheaper P300A from Phanteks. And the A in the P300 stands for airflow, by the way, so that case should have decent thermals. This one is just fully meshed out, so the thermals are implied to be good, but it's nothing out of the ordinary for a high airflow case. So it's not like an open air test bench. It's better than, I would say, the status quo. That's okay though. I'm honestly okay with that because I know I have that peace of mind when it comes to allowing my components to breathe. I'm not going to be worried about overheating from a case standpoint. We have really no choking anywhere. I mean, it's just all very airy, very roomy. Air can flow in and out with, really no issues. And I think that's the selling point here. If you just want the peace of mind from an airflow perspective, but you don't want to go so far that you have like an open air test bench that'll collect dust like a boss, then this is probably about as good as it's going to get. The last thing then to talk about is price. I bought this on Amazon. Let's see here. I paid $99.99, so $100 for this case, which I don't think is all that bad a deal. Is it as good a value though as my Phanteks P300A that I'm coming from? No. That case was like $70. That's a friggin' awesome deal, okay? This one, it's just all about the mesh. If you're an airflow snob and you just want a mesh case just to say you have one and you're worried about temperatures in the long run, this will take care of you, definitely. There are a few hardware compromises, but overall, I'm happy with it at $100. Now, here's the caveat. When I bought this, I had a $40 coupon applied at checkout automatically. It wasn't, a gift from the company or anything like that. They have no idea I bought this. It was just an automatic coupon that Amazon applied, right, kind of built into their store that marked this down from $140. Now at $140, this isn't worth it. That $40 difference can go a long way when it comes to other components, especially in a build that costs around $1,000 or so. For a build like this, north of $2,000 maybe, $140 isn't, it's not the end of the world, but for most budget conscious builders out there, this isn't worth $140. It's worth $100. I don't think it's gonna come down far from that, but definitely don't pay $140 for it. I wouldn't, personally. If I was buying this again and it was marked up to $140, I would pass, just all day. But $100, yeah, I definitely buy this again, especially if I had friends that wanted like high airflow cases and I knew that their hardware was gonna fit. I really like how just compact everything looks in a chassis like this. Yes, there's a compromise front to back, but the upside from that is the aesthetic play. You have less unused real estate in here, and I think that's one of the main selling points, apart from the airflow itself, is that the dimensions work. You're really just right on the cusp of not being able to fit things in here, and I think that's why it looks so good. You also have plenty of space, if you notice, up top to mount additional fans or even a fan rad combo. So you could add more here, and in that sense, it's not super limiting. But at $140, it's definitely not something I would buy. So take that for what you will. At $100, if you can find it with that coupon or just on sale somewhere for $100, that's great. $140, no, I wouldn't buy it. But for what I paid, I'm happy with this. I think it's one you should definitely consider. I have it linked in the video description if you want to check it out, maybe build in it yourself. With that, let me know what you guys think about the Dark Flash full mesh PC case. I've got to say, Dark Flash is on a roll here. I think this is the second time we've built in a case from them. The first, if I recall correctly, was a mint green inverted chassis, which is actually sitting in our game room right now. My wife really liked that case because of the inverted nature of it. She could put the build on the left side of the desk, and she's right-handed. She has tons of like real estate for her mouse. When she's playing CSGO, she's like all over the place, and I just don't get that, but she wanted it, and so it worked. And if I recall, again, that case really didn't have too many other compromises, especially from a hardware perspective. So we made it work. I mean, Dark Flash they're on a roll so far on this channel, and I would totally be willing to work with them in the future, so maybe some other projects we have coming up. So definitely don't shy away from the brand at this point. If you haven't heard of them before, don't be afraid to give them a shot. If you're going to spend around $100 or so on a case that looks decent on the product pictures, on the product page, I haven't been let down yet, and I like this case so much that I'm actually going to keep it for my personal rig for a good while, I imagine. Give this one a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Consider subscribing. Again, leave a comment down below, and stay tuned for the next video here on the channel. My name is Greg. Thanks for learning with me.